What's up, everyone? Sean here, and welcome to the classic format of the Hawke Talks, where I just talk over some random gameplay. But wanted to talk about something that was happening recently, where loot boxes is once again part of the conversation, unfortunately. But that's all thanks to EA once again. But anyway, this particularly comes from a video of a oral evidence session where we have a lot of committees and representatives kind of come together and talk about, whether these loot boxes are unethical or not, or how strong of a link is there between gambling and loot boxes and stuff. And after being asked a question, and representing EA is VP of Legal Affairs, Carrie Hopkins. After she was asked the question of whether these loot boxes are ethical or not, she went on to say that these aren't loot boxes, these are surprise mechanics. Or at least the quote went, we don't call them loot boxes, they're pretty much surprise mechanics. And after that, it went on to further compare these to the blind pack toys. She went on further with this idea that these loot boxes, or surprise mechanics, are comparable to surprise toys or whatever, such as Hatchimals or Kinder Eggs, or the more popular LOL surprise, because I've seen more of those around, at least at my workplace.
Can I ask you, both companies, do you consider loot boxes to be an ethical feature of your games? Kerry?
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was
whatever term you wish to apply to them. Do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics, but I think it's important to look at this. So if you go to I don't know what your version of Target is, but a store that sells a lot of toys, and you do a search for surprise toys, what you'll find is that this is something people enjoy. They enjoy surprises. And so it's something that's been part of toys for years, whether it's Kinder Eggs or Hatchimals or LOL surprise. We do think the way that we have implemented these kind of mechanics, and FIFA, of course, is our big one, our FIFA Ultimate Team and our packs, is actually quite ethical and quite fun, enjoyable to people.
And it's just such a baffling comparison. It's such a blatantly false comparison. These surprise toys aren't needed in our lives. And even if we interact with these surprise toys, we just buy them once and then that's it. That's like a one-time little thing, whether it's for ourselves or kids or whatever. These surprise toys are also a part, or are also referring to the Japanese gachapon capsule toys in Japan. They're so popular, and it's where you have the little capsule machine and you crank the dial after you put in 100 yen or whatever, or 100 or $1 essentially, and you crank it and you get a little toy, whether it's like a keychain or something, right? And that's like a one-time thing. Obviously, they aren't needed in our lives, but it's kind of nice to see a little surprise there. I'm sorry, the way that EA uses loot boxes in their recent games, especially with Battlefront 2, is not the same as surprise mechanics or surprise toys, because we weren't opening these loot boxes or whatever as surprise toys. This is it was a way of progressing through the game, which was the problem in the first place, and that is why all the fans and the gamers were coming together to bash on these loot boxes, of how they were implemented into these console games in the first place. The fact, even after the fact that you pay for a set price, $60 or whatever for that game, you are forced to pretty much pay furthermore in order to just progress through the game, as opposed to traditionally unlocking these, whether it's cards or equipment, perks, heroes or characters or whatever, with each rank up loot boxes, or they should be called randomized mechanics if you're gonna if we're gonna go try to use a different term here, because we're not here to be surprised. We are here just to play a game, and yet we're forced to pay more money in order to just play the game further, pretty much, essentially, especially with the mobile games, especially with the certain games on consoles like Battlefront 2. So I'm sorry, that comparison is absolutely freaking laughable and should not have been said in the first place, because that just further drives that nail into the coffin, pretty much, I feel. And it's just so baffling with the fact that EA Star Wars on Twitter went out and said that we have no loot boxes. They refer these as loot boxes. So which is it, EA? Are these surprise mechanics or are these loot boxes? Get your shit straight. So just to reiterate and clear up my point, these loot boxes and microtransactions are not surprise toys or surprise mechanics. We're not here to be surprised. We're here just so we can play the game, which should not have been a thing in the first place. We should just play the game by just playing the game, instead of having to lock this game behind a time wall, or the progression being locked behind loot boxes, and we're just forced to pay up more money because getting these loot boxes is such a grind, or it takes such a long time. So they know what they're doing, and they are pretty much exercising that part of the brain that is associated with gambling, and they just know it. Now, my channel does, however, feature these things that I've talked about and that are related to the whole loot box and microtransaction problem. Especially with mobile games like Fate Grand Order and stuff like that, or Azure Lane. I've spent money on Azure Lane as well, but just that's for skins, so I know what I'm buying. That's the thing about Azure Lane. But when it comes to Grand Order, yeah, I bought some gems just to summon the heroes that I look forward to. But the thing is that I'm already an adult. I already know what I'm doing. I'm over 21, of course, and so I am fully aware of the true intentions or the meaning behind these things. And it is pretty much, like gambling, and gambling can be really, really lethal to the vulnerable minds, especially with children. And children are exposed to these things today, like many of them are, and especially with games like Fortnite, where a lot of kids are kind of drawn into even now still. And that game, of course, is prominent with the loot box and stuff like that, so you can get your favorite skin or emote or whatever it is that they want. And so they don't know what what it really means, so they grab their parents' credit cards and you just go spend money on the loot boxes like it's nothing. They're just not aware of these true intentions and the psychological effects that it can have on these on these younger players or audiences. So obviously it doesn't affect all of them, but a good number of them could be, or can be seduced to these negative effects of loot boxes and gambling and all that stuff in between. So that is where the real problem lies, and I feel like these loot boxes should at the very least be on the front cover on the ESRB ratings, like loot boxes or gambling like mechanics or something like that. I don't know how they should word it, but they should at least indicate that there are loot boxes or microtransactions of some kind that do lie in these in these categories, or is related to this issue, and have it have this whole thing like age restricted, and of course the mobile games should do the same. Luckily, certain mobile games like Fate Grand Order are mostly played by adults, so it's a little safer. But I'm not trying to endorse loot boxes all that much either, but just saying, like, these things should at least be controlled way more than that they aren't, you know what I mean? So it's just for the sake of protecting the psychological fidelities or the structure or foundations of the minds of younger audiences, or especially children. But they still blatantly just say that these loot boxes are still ethical, these microtransactions are still okay, and praise the loot boxes. Oh, God. Why does this have to continue? We should just move on from it. We all know that loot boxes are unethical. They are malicious. They are just this is so evil, pretty much. I just want these things to go away from our console games, at least. I think that's a good start, but EA is just still holding on to that idea, that temptation of these loot boxes, because they want that fucking money. They just want to continue to make that money off of that same platform. That's what they see these games as, platforms to make more money. Even after the $60 purchase, they just want to make more money. But just come on, just go back to just at least make DLC that it would expand the story or more maps or whatever. That is at least with that we know what we're paying for. But just don't do loot boxes anymore, guys. It is just enough is enough. That's all I can say about this whole situation with the loot box and all that. But anyways, yeah, so that's pretty much all I got for the loot box situation here with the comparison of being surprise toys. They are not. Come on, guys. And you know it. You guys know it. And you guys know what you're doing with these loot boxes. It's terrible. So anyways, if you guys have any related comments, please leave it down below. Love to see them. And also, checking me out on all the social media stuff. And you know what's really funny? I'm still sponsored by Loot Crate, but at least, again, those things are tangible and you can use them in your daily life, like, you know, the t-shirts and stuff like that. And you can even pick and choose what kind of surprises you want to get. You want to get just t-shirts? Do you want to also get little memorabilia of whatever game, specific game you want, like Fallout, Halo, or whatever? So you can be surprised in the right way. So the link and the promo code will be in the description below. I know it's a really funny way to like implement that into this conversation, but I don't know. I had to say, I could not resist with this whole comparison to these loot boxes and these surprise toys in the first place. Ugh, it's just so blatantly bad. Just, ugh. Anyways, for reals, that's all I got. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.